My name is Elena Marquez, and I'm 37 years old. For most of my adult life, I've been the one my family calls when something breaks, bounces, or unexpectedly comes due. When the electricity bill is overdue and the lights are about to be shut off. When mom's car makes a new sound and she just doesn't have it this month. When my younger sister Pamela wants to upgrade her vacation plans, but her credit card is maxed out. I'm the dependable one, the quiet one, the one who shows up at birthdays and holidays with expensive gifts and picks up tabs without being asked. I never made a fuss about it. That was my role. Pamela was different. She always has been. She was the favorite, shiny, loud, and effortlessly adored. When we were kids, her birthday parties had clowns and rented bounce houses. Mine had grocery store cake and paper plates in the backyard. When she graduated high school, Dad surprised her with a car, complete with a big red bow on the hood. When I graduated, he gave me a firm handshake and told me to get a job. So I did. I worked 2 jobs through college, mornings at a coffee shop, evenings stocking shelves. Pamela sailed through on Mom and Dad's dime, coming home on weekends with bags of dirty laundry and empty pockets, making jokes about campus life, while I tried not to fall asleep standing up. I never complained. I told myself this was what family did. You help the one who needs it more. By the time I was 25, I was covering half their mortgage when Dad's hours got cut. By 30, I was paying for Mom's medications, Pamela's car insurance, and the entire family cell phone plan because it's cheaper if it's all under one account, honey. They never asked if I could afford it. They just assumed, and I let them. I wanted to believe that my help mattered, that it made me valuable, that one day they'd see me the way they saw Pamela. I was wrong. Dad's 65th birthday was supposed to be special. Mom had been talking about it for months, dropping hints about wanting a nice lunch somewhere with white tablecloths and a proper wine list. Pamela jumped on the idea, immediately planning guest lists and custom cake flavors. Nobody mentioned who would pay. They didn't have to. I knew it would be me. I made the reservation at the Meridian, a restaurant with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the river, the kind of place where appetizers cost $20, and the waiters wear vests and polished shoes. I ordered a 3-tier chocolate hazelnut cake from the best bakery in the city, with hand-piped frosting and edible gold leaf. I bought half the gifts on the table, wrapped in expensive paper with silk ribbons. I didn't tell anyone. I just handled it. That was my role. The morning of the lunch, my boyfriend Daniel texted me, "You sure you don't want me there? I can move a few meetings." I stared at the message for a second. Daniel's family, loud, nosy, but fundamentally kind, had already invited me to 3 different barbecues this year. They argued, but they always made room for each other. The idea of putting him in the same room as my parents and Pamela felt like dropping a glass of water into hot oil. "It's okay," I replied. "It's just lunch. I'll be fine." A lie I'd told myself so many times it almost sounded true. When we arrived at the restaurant, Pamela swept in wearing a designer dress I knew I'd indirectly paid for when I covered her car payment 2 months ago. Her husband Tyler trailed behind her, laughing too loudly at his own jokes. Mom and Dad took their seats at the head of the table, glowing with the satisfaction of being celebrated. My son Harold sat beside me. He's 5, small for his age, with my same restless hands and nervous smile. He swung his legs under the table, eyes bright. He'd seen the cake being brought into the kitchen earlier and had been whispering about it ever since. "Do you think it'll have sprinkles?" he asked, voice soft. "I think it'll be amazing," I said, smoothing his hair. "You'll see." The lunch went exactly how I expected. Dad told the same stories he always tells, how he built everything from nothing, conveniently skipping the part where I started quietly paying the mortgage. Pamela took over the conversation, talking about her latest vacation plans and how she deserved a break from her stressful job. Tyler made comments about sports I didn't follow. Mom fussed over everyone except me. I poured water, passed bread baskets, smiled at the right moments. I was there, but I wasn't. I felt invisible. I always did. Then the waiters brought out the cake. It was perfect. Exactly what I'd ordered. 3 layers of deep brown chocolate, glossy ganache, delicate gold accents catching the afternoon light from the river. The waiter set it down in the center of the table. Everyone clapped. Dad joked about getting old. Cameras came out. For a moment, even I felt a flicker of satisfaction. I had done this. I had made this moment happen. The waiter began slicing, setting pieces on small china plates. That's when everything changed. Pamela reached across the table, quick and casual, and took 2 slices before anyone else was served. She set one in front of herself and one in front of Tyler. Then she glanced at the waiter and said something I will never forget. Her voice was light, playful, the way someone might comment on the weather, but her words cut like glass. "He doesn't need a slice. Save it for real family." She was pointing at Harold. My son, my 5-year-old son, who had been sitting quietly, waiting his turn, eyes fixed on that cake like it was the most magical thing in the world. The room went silent. The waiter froze, the cake knife hovering midair. Tyler laughed, actually laughed, like it was the funniest thing he'd ever heard. "Come on, Pam," he said, grinning. "That's cold." But he was smiling. He wasn't defending my son. He was entertained. I felt my chest tighten, like someone had reached in and squeezed my heart with an icy fist. For a second, I couldn't breathe. I looked at Mom, waiting for her to say something, to step in, to correct Pamela, to be the adult I'd always needed her to be. Instead, Mom reached over and tapped my arm gently, her voice low and soft like she was soothing a child. "Let it go," she whispered. "It's just cake." Just cake. As if cake was the problem. As if my son being told he wasn't real family in front of the entire table was something small, something I should swallow and forget like I'd swallowed everything else. I looked at Harold. His face had gone still. His crayon lay motionless on the kids' menu. He stared down at his placemat, lashes lowered, shoulders curling inward. He understood. Children always do. He was 5 years old, and he understood that his aunt did not think he belonged. Something inside me broke. Not loudly, not dramatically. There was no clever comeback, no thrown drink, no yelling. It was quiet, like a thread snapping in a place no one could see. I had spent years convincing myself that my silence was strength, that my generosity would eventually be rewarded with respect, that if I kept giving, someday they would look at me and see more than the wallet that solved their problems. But sitting there, watching my son shrink into himself while my family laughed and my mother told me to let it go, I realized the truth. They didn't respect me. They never had. I wasn't family. I was a bank account with a pulse. I didn't yell. I didn't argue. I didn't make a scene. I simply stood up. Every eye at the table turned toward me. Chairs squeaked. Someone murmured my name. Dad looked confused, a fork halfway to his mouth. I walked around the table, lifted Harold gently from his chair, and settled him on my hip. He clung to my shoulder, small hands fisting in the fabric of my dress. I grabbed the large gift bag I had brought, the one with the expensive watch inside that I'd spent weeks choosing and paying for. I looked at Pamela, at Tyler, at my parents. My voice was calm, steady, cold. "Enjoy paying for the rest," I said. Then I turned and walked away. Behind me, I heard a chorus of reactions. Pamela's offended, "What the hell?" Dad calling my name. Mom's sharp, "Elena, don't be childish." But I didn't turn around. I carried Harold through the restaurant, past the other tables, past the host stand, out into the bright afternoon sun. The air felt too clean, too bright, like I'd stepped onto a different planet. In the parking lot, I buckled Harold into his car seat. He was quiet. "Did I do something wrong?" he asked finally, voice small. My throat burned. "No," I said, kneeling so we were eye level. "You did nothing wrong. You are perfect. This isn't about you, okay?" He nodded, but the confusion in his eyes told me he didn't understand. How could he? I wasn't sure I could explain it in a way that wouldn't hurt him more. On the drive home, the silence felt heavier than any argument. Harold eventually fell asleep, his head tilted awkwardly against the car seat. I kept glancing at him in the rearview mirror, replaying Pamela's words over and over in my mind. Real family. When we got home, I carried Harold inside and laid him on the couch, tucking a blanket around him. His lashes fluttered, but he didn't wake. I walked into the kitchen, sat down at the table, and opened my laptop. For the first time in years, I wasn't thinking about what my family needed from me. I was thinking about everything I had given them. And I was thinking, seriously, for the very first time in my life, about taking it all back. I didn't sleep that night. After I put Harold to bed, after I washed off my makeup and changed into an old t-shirt, I sat back down at the kitchen table with my laptop and a yellow legal pad. The house was quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator and the occasional car passing outside. My phone buzzed a few times, texts from Mom and Pamela that I refused to open, but eventually even that stopped. For once, the silence belonged to me. I opened my banking app first, then my email, Then old PDFs I hadn't touched in years. It felt like lifting floorboards and finally looking at everything that had been rotting underneath. For years, I had treated money like something that flowed only one way, out. As long as the bills were paid and no one was crying on the phone, I told myself I was fine. I never added it all up. I never wanted to. Tonight I wanted to. The mortgage payments started 8 years ago when Dad lost his job temporarily. I pulled up the first transfer. Down $100, half the payment. Just until we get back on our feet, he'd said. The temporary never ended. Month after month, year after year, $1,100 disappeared from my account. I scrolled, page after page, my stomach tightening with each repeating line. I grabbed my pen and started writing numbers in neat columns on the legal pad. Mortgage, $100 is 12 is 8 years. Over $100,000. I stared at the total until the zeros blurred. Then I moved to car insurance. 6 years of payments for Mom and Pamela, bundled into my policy for the discount. Another line item, another multi-year drain I'd never questioned. $18,000. Utilities were next. When I moved out of the house, Dad never transferred the accounts out of my name. It's just easier this way, he'd said. Automatic payments had been quietly leaving my account for their electricity, water, and gas ever since. $24,000. Family cell phone plan. 650 spread over the years. Emergency car repairs. 600 here, 800 there, always accompanied by panicked calls and promises to pay you back soon that never materialized. Medical bills. Mom couldn't cover. One-time emergency cash infusions when Pamela had overspent. Vacation rentals I never saw because I wasn't invited. The list went on and on and on. I flipped through my own memories as I went, matching each number to a scene. Dad calling me with his voice low and ashamed, telling me they'd fall behind on the house without me. Mom crying about how the pharmacy wouldn't fill her prescription unless she paid up front. Pamela sending Venmo requests with captions like, "You're the best," and "Save me, big sis," followed by selfies from beaches I'd never seen. I wrote it all down. By the time I reached the last transfer, the legal pad was a mess of ink and underlines and circled totals. My eyes burned. My back ached. The clock on the stove read 2:47 a.m. I added the columns slowly, double-checking each line. When I wrote the final total at the bottom of the page, my hand trembled. $240,008, almost $250,000. I sat back and stared at that number until it stopped feeling like money and more like proof. Proof that I hadn't been dramatic. Proof that my entire adult life I'd been funneling my future into theirs while they treated me like background noise. I had given them a house. I had given them stability. I had given them a lifestyle they could not afford without me. And today they told my son he wasn't real family. My throat tightened, but no tears came. I felt hollow, clear, like someone had finally wiped fog off a mirror and I could see my own reflection for the first time. I picked up my phone. It was almost 3 a.m. I didn't call anyone. I didn't rant on social media. I didn't send a dramatic text. Instead, I went back to my laptop and opened the mortgage account. The recurring transfer was right there, highlighted in green. I clicked cancel. A box popped up asking if I was sure. It felt almost ridiculous. Am I sure after everything I'd just seen? Yes, I muttered, clicking confirm. I drafted an email to the loan servicer requesting that my name be removed as an authorized payer. I knew it wouldn't be instant, but it was a start, a line drawn. Next was car insurance. I logged into my policy portal and removed Mom and Pamela from my coverage. The system warned me that their vehicles would lose coverage at midnight. "It's your car," I whispered to the empty kitchen, thinking of Pamela. "Your life, your responsibility." I moved to the cell phone account and removed every line except mine. Effective immediately. Utilities were next. I switched the accounts into Dad's name, set the auto pay to stop at the end of the billing cycle, and saved the confirmations. One by one, I cut each invisible string tying me to their survival. It took 3 hours. By the time the sky outside the kitchen window started lightening, I was done. My laptop battery was low. My coffee had gone cold, untouched. My legal pad looked like something a lawyer might bring to court. I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel vengeful. I felt still. They would wake up tomorrow and nothing would be different. The lights would turn on. The water would run. The Wi-Fi would still work. Their phones would connect. Their car insurance would not vanish mid-drive. But in a week, maybe 2, the bills would arrive. The payments would bounce. The services would stop. And they would realize all at once how much of their lives had been built on my back. I closed the laptop and rubbed my eyes. My body was exhausted, but my mind hummed with a focused kind of calm. My phone lit up on the table. A new message, this time from Daniel. "Hey, can't sleep. Just checking on you. Can I call?" I stared at the screen for a long second, then typed back, "Yeah, call me." The phone rang almost immediately. "Hey," he said, voice low and rough with sleep. "How are you holding up?" "I just canceled everything," I said, surprising myself with how steady I sounded. "The mortgage payments, the insurance, the cell plan, all of it." For a moment, all I heard was his breathing. "Good," he said finally. "About time." I let out a sound that was halfway between a laugh and a sob. "You're not going to tell me I'm being dramatic? That it's just cake?" He was quiet for a beat. "Elena," he said softly, "my ex used to call me dramatic when I brought up money. Mia." I'd heard about her in pieces, how she'd moved in with him and forgot to pay bills, how she'd quit her job to find herself while he picked up extra shifts, how she'd rolled her eyes when he asked where the rent money went, then cried when he tried to set boundaries. "Remember when I told you she ran up my credit cards?" he continued. "You know what she said when I finally confronted her? 'It's just money. You'll figure it out.' Like debt is some magical puzzle I should be grateful to solve." I pictured Pamela laughing over the cake, Mom tapping my arm and saying, "Let it go. It's just cake." "It's never just the thing," Daniel said. "It's the message behind it. Mia didn't care that she was burying us in debt because she didn't respect me. Your sister didn't care that she humiliated Harold because she doesn't respect you, or him." I swallowed hard. "I did an actual total, Dan. $243,812. That's how much I've given them, at minimum." He whistled under his breath. "Jesus. I've been paying for their entire life while they laugh behind my back about how I always have it covered. And when I finally say no, they tell my son he's not real family." There was another pause, then his voice came back, firm and warm. "You know what I see when I look at you?" he asked. "Not an ATM, not someone who always needed them more. I see a woman who has carried everyone else's weight for so long, she doesn't even realize how strong she is. And I see a mom who finally said enough when they hurt her kid. That's not selfish, Elena. That's what real love looks like." My eyes stung. I blinked hard. "I don't know what's going to happen when everything shuts off," I admitted. "The mortgage, the insurance, all of it. They're going to blame me." "They were going to blame you no matter what," he said gently. "People who use you always do. But you don't owe them your future just because you gave them your past." I let his words sink in. They settled somewhere deep, next to the number on the legal pad and the memory of Harold's face at the restaurant. "You're sure this won't make you think I'm cruel?" I asked before I could stop myself. Daniel let out a soft laugh. "Mia drained me and then called me heartless when I finally cut her off. I spent years thinking I was the problem. I wish I'd done what you did a lot sooner." His voice softened. "I'm proud of you." That sentence hit me harder than any accusation my family had ever thrown at me. We talked a little longer about Harold, about work, about nothing and everything, until my words started slurring from exhaustion. He made me promise to try to sleep. I promised, knowing I would at least lie down and stare at the ceiling. After we hung up, I stood in Harold's doorway for a long moment, watching him breathe. His small chest rising and falling under the blankets, his face peaceful, unaware of the tectonic shift that had just happened in his world. He deserved better than this. Better than relatives who saw him as expendable. Better than a mother who let herself be treated like a walking debit card. I closed his door gently and went back to the kitchen. The laptop was still on, the legal pad still open, the total underlined twice. $243,800. Evidence of who I had been for them. They thought I would never stop. They thought I needed them more than they needed me. I turned off the light and walked down the hallway toward my bedroom, feeling the house settle around me. For the first time in years, my future wasn't tied to their overdue bills and emergencies. In a week or two, their services would start shutting down. Their phones would go dark. The bank would call. Panic would set in. They'd come looking for their safety net, and they'd discover it was gone. The first message came at 6:42 a.m. I'd barely slept, just drifted in and out of shallow, jittery dreams, and when my phone buzzed on the nightstand, I already knew it wouldn't be good. It was from Pamela. "Pamela, hey, my phone isn't working. Fix it. I have calls this morning." No greeting, no question, just a command. I stared at it for a moment, then locked the phone and set it down. 10 minutes later, another buzz. Mom, the Wi-Fi is down. Do you know anything about that? Followed immediately by, your dad has a doctor's appointment today. He needs the car insurance info. It says it's unavailable. Fix this now. I didn't respond. I padded into the kitchen, made coffee, and sat at the table watching the sunlight creep across the floor. The house felt strangely peaceful, like something had unclenched its fists around my ribs. At 8:03, my phone erupted. Calls, texts, voicemails, notifications pouring in like hail on a tin roof. Dad's angry voice in one voicemail. The mortgage payment bounced. The bank is saying we owe late fees. What did you do? Call me back. Another from Pamela, this one shrill. My car insurance lapsed? They said you removed me from the policy. I can't even drive legally? Are you insane? Tyler added his own contribution. Hey, not sure if this is a billing error, but our phones aren't working either. Can you check on that? As if I were customer service. Mom sent a paragraph about how families communicate and how I was being childish and dramatic. I sat there, sipping my coffee, reading each message slowly. Then I set the phone face down and finished my breakfast. For once, their panic didn't feel like my responsibility. It felt like consequences finally catching up to the people who'd never believed consequences applied to them. By 10 a.m., the messages shifted tone. Pamela went from demanding to desperate. Pamela, I have a meeting an hour away. I need my car. Why would you do this? Mom, your father is livid. You're putting us in a terrible position. Dad, fix this immediately. I don't care what your problem is. Family comes first. Family. The word sat bitter on my tongue. Around lunchtime, a notification popped up from a different name, Logan. My brother, the one person who usually stayed far, far out of the Marquez family tornado. He lived 2 states away and only showed up for major holidays. Quiet, observant, neutral to a fault. His message was short. Logan, hey, Mom's melting down. Dad's furious. Pamela's calling me nonstop. What the hell is going on? I looked at his text for a long moment. Then I answered him. Because Logan had never demanded anything from me. Because Logan, unlike the rest of them, had never made me feel invisible. Me. Something happened yesterday at Dad's lunch. I'm done paying for everything, that's all. A few minutes passed. Then, Logan, what exactly happened? I typed, erased, typed again. In the end, I sent the truth. Me. Pamela told Harold he wasn't real family, and Mom told me to let it go. So I let it all go. 5 minutes passed before he responded. Logan, wow, I didn't know. That's messed up. I didn't expect him to say more. He was always careful not to choose sides. And that was fine. I didn't need him to. What happened next, though? I never saw it coming. At 7:03 a.m. the next morning, my phone buzzed again. One notification. Just one. Logan, you need to see this. Attached was a screenshot. A long screenshot. My stomach dropped before I even opened it. The top of the image showed a group chat. The title made my blood run cold. Real family. Participants, Mom, Dad, Pamela, Tyler. I started scrolling. Pamela, Elena finally snapped LMAO. I guess the ATM is closed. Tyler, good. She was always weird about money anyway. Mom, she's upset about the cake thing. I told her to let it go. She's being dramatic. She'll cool off. Dad, she better. Mortgage payment bounced today. Bank is threatening fees. Pamela, wait, seriously? She actually cut us off? Mom, she'll come crawling back. She always does. She needs us more than we need her. Those words punched the air out of my lungs. She needs us more than we need her. That was how they saw me? Not as someone who'd kept them afloat. Not as someone they depended on. But someone who depended on them. I kept scrolling. The messages got worse. Pamela, honestly, I'm not worried. She's not smart enough to follow through. She'll be paying our bills again in a week. Mom, this is how she gets. She needs to feel important. Dad, if she doesn't fix this, we're screwed. She has to come back. Pamela, she will. That's all she's good for. I stopped breathing for a moment. Then I scrolled to the very bottom. The most recent message, time-stamped late last night, was from Dad. I'll give her until Friday. If she doesn't fix the mortgage, we're cutting her out permanently. She wants to act like she's not family? Fine. There it was. The threat. The ultimatum. The belief that I'd panic and rush back to save them, like I had every other time. I sat back in my chair, the phone heavy in my hand. My heart didn't race. Anger didn't flare. Tears didn't fall. Instead, a strange calm settled over me, like something inside me was finally locking into place. I reread the messages 3 times, each pass sharpening the clarity. They didn't love me. They didn't respect me. They didn't see me. Not even a little. To them, I wasn't a daughter or a sister. I was a resource they expected to exploit forever. A wallet. A tool. An obligation they believed they were entitled to. They thought I needed them. They thought I'd crawl back. They thought I was too weak to follow through. They had no idea who I really was. I tapped my screen. Me, Logan. Thank you for sending this. A moment later, Logan. I'm sorry, Elena. I don't know what else to say. Me. You said enough. Then I set the phone down, leaned back in my chair, and stared at the ceiling. My family had drawn a line. They expected me to break, to apologize, to fix everything, to resume my role as the silent provider. But I'd made my own line the night before, and I wasn't breaking it. Not now, not ever. For the first time in my life, I wasn't the one who needed them. They were the ones who needed me. And they were about to learn exactly what it felt like when I stopped being there. The calm inside me grew, settling deep and sure. This wasn't a tantrum. This wasn't revenge. This was freedom. And I wasn't going back. I didn't go to work the next morning. I took Harold to school, kissed the top of his head, watched him run toward the entrance with his too big backpack bouncing behind him, and then drove home with the kind of clear, humming focus people mistake for coldness. It wasn't coldness. It was resolve. By the time I walked through my front door, I had already made my decision. No more guesswork, no more vague memories, no more maybe it wasn't that bad. I was going to build a record. Not for them, for me. Proof of who I had been. Proof of what they had taken. Proof of why I was done. I opened my laptop, created a new spreadsheet, and typed the title in bold at the top. Elena's Financial Contributions, 2015 to present. Then I started filling it in. Mortgage payments, $1,100, charge 12, by 8 years. Car insurance, 6 years for 2 adults. Utilities for a house I didn't live in. Cell phones, emergency repairs, medical co-pays, cash transfers labeled HELP or PLS, vacation rentals, gifts I couldn't afford but bought anyway because I wanted them to see me, even just a little. 14 pages later, the spreadsheet looked like evidence in a fraud case. The total at the bottom read, $243. I sat back and stared at it, not in disbelief, but in quiet, devastating understanding. This wasn't generosity. This wasn't love. This wasn't being a good daughter. It was exploitation wrapped in the soft, suffocating language of family. Before I could second-guess myself, my phone buzzed. Daniel. I answered on the first ring. Hey, I said, my voice calmer than I felt. I've been calling, he said. I know you saw the messages Logan sent. I exhaled. Yeah, I saw. Are you okay? That question, gentle, simple, did something to me I didn't expect. It hit harder than any cruel word in the real family chat. No, I admitted, but I will be. There was a soft rustle on his end, like he'd sat down. Elena, I'm proud of you for not going back. I'm not tempted, I said, not this time. He hesitated. Good. You deserve people who don't treat you like a bank account, I finished for him. Exactly that, I swallowed. There's something else, about Mia. The line went quiet for half a beat. She's still in a group chat with Pamela, I said. It wasn't her who sent the screenshot, but she's part of their world. That's weird for me. I know, Daniel said, sighing. Believe me, if it were up to me, I wouldn't hear her name ever again. But she and Pamela used to work together, and Pamela always overshared. Mia knows way too much. That didn't surprise me. I could easily picture Pamela and Mia gossiping over overpriced salads, bonding over mutual superiority. Does it bother you? He asked quietly. That she's in the orbit of people who hate me? Yes, I said, but I'm not worried about you. He didn't respond right away, but when he did, his voice was warm, steady, and absolutely certain. Elena, I'm with you, not her, not anyone who treats you like they did. You don't have to compete with my past. The tightness in my chest loosened just a little. I didn't need a man to rescue me, but having someone who stood beside me, unquestioningly, without flinching, that mattered in a way I hadn't expected. Thank you, I whispered. After we hung up, I went back to my work. I created a folder on my desktop. Family receipts. Do not delete. Into it, I dragged the spreadsheet, the confirmation emails for every canceled payment, screenshots of the real family messages, the texts and voicemails filled with entitlement and threats. I wasn't gathering ammunition. I was gathering clarity. At noon, my phone lit up again. Pamela. For a brief second, I considered ignoring her, but then I remembered her saying Harold wasn't real family, and I answered. Her voice came out sharp, brittle, furious. Elena, what the hell are you doing? Mom is crying, Dad's freaking out, and Tyler? Why are you calling me? I cut in. You know why, she snapped. You need to turn everything back on. This is childish. It's pathetic, Elena. Grow up. No, I said. There was a stunned silence. Then, disbelieving, "No, no," I repeated. "I'm done fixing everything for you." Pamela let out a short, ugly laugh. "Are you serious? Over a joke? Over cake?" "It wasn't a joke," I said. "You told my son he wasn't real family." "Oh my God," she groaned. "You're so dramatic. It was harmless." "Harmless?" I asked. "He's 5, Pamela." "And? Kids forget things." "I don't forget," I said. She scoffed. "What do you want? An apology? Fine, I'm sorry. There. Are you happy?" "No," I said, "because you're not sorry that you hurt Harold. You're sorry you lost your free ride." Pamela sucked in a breath. "You know what? I'm done being nice. You're ruining this entire family, Elena. This is all your fault." "No," I said again, steady this time. "It's yours." She started saying something else, her voice rising higher and higher, but I hung up, then blocked her. Silence filled the kitchen, gentle, soft, peaceful. It felt foreign. It felt sacred. My phone buzzed again, and for a split second I braced myself for another attack. But it was a single message from Logan. "Logan, I'm proud of you. Don't let them pull you back in." I stared at the message until my vision blurred a bit. Logan wasn't emotional. He wasn't poetic. He rarely got involved. So that message was enough to anchor me, to remind me I wasn't imagining everything. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't cruel. I wasn't overreacting. I was finally protecting myself. That afternoon, I left my apartment and drove to a small playground near Harold's school. I watched him run around after pickup, climbing the jungle gym, laughing unburdened. He didn't know how his world had shifted overnight. He didn't know his grandparents were unraveling. He didn't know my phone was filled with accusations and screaming. He just knew I had shown up for him. For once, that was enough. That evening, after he fell asleep with his stuffed dinosaur tucked under his arm, I opened my laptop one more time. The spreadsheet glowed softly in the dim light. The total 243,812. Their words. "She needs us more than we need her. She's not smart enough to follow through. That's all she's good for." I felt no rage, no sadness, just clarity. They thought this was a tantrum, a moment of weakness, a bluff. They had mistaken compliance for dependency. They had mistaken silence for loyalty. They had mistaken me for someone who would always come back. They didn't understand. I wasn't breaking down. I was breaking free. By the end of the week, the cracks in their lives turned into fractures. By the second week, those fractures split into ruin. To hear them tell it later, through the grapevine, through cousins, through Logan, everything suddenly fell apart. But nothing about it was sudden. It was simply the first time I wasn't there to hold the pieces together. Week 1. Glitches. Their Wi-Fi stopped working. Their phones disconnected. Pamela's car insurance lapsed completely. Dad's mortgage payment bounced again. Mom texted me screenshots with frantic captions. "Mom, why is the internet bill addressed to you? Fix this." "Mom, your father's doctor needs the insurance card. It says invalid." "Mom, why are you doing this to us?" They weren't questions. They were accusations wrapped in entitlement. I didn't respond. Daniel called that night. "You okay?" he asked as soon as I answered. "I'm surprisingly calm," I admitted. "It feels like watching a storm from behind glass." "Just remember," he said, "storms don't mean you cause the weather." I smiled faintly. "I know." Week 2. Panic. Their internet shut off completely. Their phones were cut off. The cable box stopped working. And then the first big crack. Pamela's car was towed. Logan called me that night. "She got pulled over for driving without insurance," he said. "They impounded her car." "What did she expect?" I asked. "She's blaming you," he said gently. "Of course she is. She says you ruined her life." I almost laughed. "She ruined it herself." "Yeah," Logan sighed. "I told her that. She didn't listen." He paused. "Elena, they're unraveling, all 3 of them. Mom's crying nonstop. Dad's yelling at everyone. Pamela is telling anyone who will listen that you're heartless." I leaned against my kitchen counter and closed my eyes. "What do you think?" I asked. Logan didn't hesitate. "I think you're finally doing the right thing." Week 3. Collapse. The bank called them about foreclosure proceedings. Dad called from a neighbor's house because their phone plan was gone. His voice shook with fury. "Elena, this has gone far enough. You need to fix the mortgage right now." "No," I said. "You're going to put us out on the street." "You put me out of your family years ago," I said. There was a hard, stunned silence. Then he growled, "This is not who you are." I felt my jaw tighten. "You never bothered to find out who I am," I said softly. "You just used me." "What about family?" he shouted. "What about Harold?" I countered. "Where was family when you let Pamela call him not real family?" Silence. Then, "You're overreacting. It was just—" "Cake," I said, finishing the sentence for him. "I know. You think I'm ending 20 years of support over cake." I inhaled. But the truth is, I am ending it because you never once protected me, or my son, or even cared how I felt. You cared about my money, and now it's gone. You are shutting us out of your life, he roared. No, I said, I'm shutting you out of my bank account. And I hung up. Then I blocked his number. My hands didn't shake, not even a little. Week 4, social media war. Pamela posted a long, vague rant about betrayal, fake loyalty, and being stabbed in the back by someone you trusted. Mom posted a picture of the house with the caption, "Prayers needed, hard times. Some people don't understand family anymore." The comments poured in. So sorry, sweetie. You raised your kids better than that. Some children forget their parents when they get money. Stay strong. Not one person asked what really happened. Not one wondered if there was more to the story. It didn't matter. I wasn't going to fight them publicly. I wasn't going to defend myself to people who weren't there. I simply blocked every account involved. Week 5, the final break. One morning, as Harold and I were getting ready for school and work, my phone buzzed with an unfamiliar number. I almost ignored it, but then I saw the name in the voicemail transcription. Mom! I let it play. Elena, she said, voice thick with performative tears. You're tearing this family apart. The bank is moving to foreclose. Your father is sick with stress. Pamela is humiliated. All because you can't let go of one childish moment. I closed my eyes, exhaling slowly. And what about Harold? She continued. He's going to grow up thinking you're cruel, that you abandoned your family, that you destroyed your father's home. My blood went cold. Nothing made me angrier than someone weaponizing my son. Nothing. I deleted the voicemail. Then I blocked the number. I didn't bother replying. They had lost the right to speak to me the moment they made a 5-year-old feel less than human. What came next? The foreclosure proceeded. Pamela's car remained in the impound lot until she borrowed money from someone else. Tyler reportedly moved to stay with a friend until things cooled down. And my family? They talked about me like I was a villain in a story they wrote themselves. But the only person who called me, the only honest voice, was Logan. When he visited a few weekends later, he sat across from me in my living room and said, "You know what Mom told me yesterday? Elena always needed us more than we needed her." I felt something in my chest go completely, utterly quiet. "And what do you think?" I asked. Logan folded his hands. "I think," he said slowly, "that they never knew you at all." I swallowed, the tightness in my throat almost painful. "And I think," he added, "that you saved yourself, and Harold." I blinked hard. "You gave them 20 years, he said. "That's more than they ever gave you." He didn't hug me. He didn't offer pity. He simply sat there, a quiet presence, the only one in my family who had never taken from me. For the first time in my entire life, I felt something close to peace. Not the uneasy truce I used to call peace, but real peace. The kind that comes when you stop bleeding for people who sharpen the knife. Within days, the worst of the financial chaos was over, for me at least. For them, it was just beginning. And I didn't look back. By the time the dust finally settled, there was a strange, quiet stillness in my life. Like someone had finally turned off a humming appliance I'd lived with for so long I forgot it made noise. For the first time in years, every dollar I earned was mine. Every quiet morning was mine. Every breath I took felt mine. Not borrowed, not owed, not taken by someone else's crisis. Just mine. The new normal. Harold adapted faster than I expected. Kids are like that. They don't carry decades of emotional debris, just the immediate bruise. And once you remove the hand that caused the bruise, they heal. He stopped asking about Grandma and Grandpa by the second week. One night, while he was coloring at the table, I asked gently, "Do you miss them?" He paused, thought, then shrugged. "Not really," he said. "I like it when it's just us." There was no bitterness in his voice, just honesty, the kind I'd been raised to avoid. I pressed a kiss to the top of his head and whispered, "Me too." The space money leaves behind. With the constant financial bleeding gone, I discovered something new and startling. I had money. Not, I can splurge a little money. Not, I can cover another emergency money. Not, I'll be broke until next paycheck money. Money that stayed. Money that grew. The first month after cutting the financial cords, I had enough left over to do things I hadn't let myself dream about. I opened a college savings account for Harold. I bought new bedding without checking the price tag first. I upgraded our ancient microwave that always smelled faintly like burnt plastic. I booked a small, cozy cabin at a lake for a weekend, just me and Harold. No extended family, no tension. When I told Harold, he lit up like a firecracker. "A real cabin? With a lake? Can we go fishing? Can we roast marshmallows?" His excitement was like sunlight on my skin. For once, I wasn't giving him what was left after everyone else took what they wanted. I was giving him the best. Pamela and Tyler. I wasn't seeking updates. I didn't stalk their socials or ask Logan for details, but the information trickled in anyway, quietly, inevitably. Pamela's car remained in the impound lot for over a month. She ended up borrowing money from a coworker she'd always bragged about being beneath her. When she finally got the car back, she had to cancel her gym membership, her weekly nail appointments, and her subscription boxes. When I heard the latter, I almost laughed. She'd been living a luxury lifestyle on my dime. Without my dime, she was just another woman making bad financial decisions and blaming the nearest person for the fallout. As for Tyler, he moved out temporarily, then permanently. Logan said the fights were explosive. Pamela blamed him for not fixing things. Tyler blamed her for pushing the ATM too far. Their marriage had been held together by my wallet. Without it, it crumbled like cheap drywall. I didn't feel vindicated. I didn't feel guilty. I just felt nothing. Strangers make choices. Strangers live with the consequences. Pamela and Tyler were strangers now. Mom and Dad. The house went into pre-foreclosure. They tried refinancing but couldn't qualify. Dad's credit was too damaged. They tried applying for a reverse mortgage. Denied. Mom tried selling jewelry I had bought her over the years, claiming publicly they were family heirlooms. Dad picked up a part-time job at a hardware store. Logan said he looked exhausted. Mom blamed everyone except herself. Eventually, they applied to a housing nonprofit for help. Logan told me they were embarrassed, but relieved. He asked if I wanted updates. No, I said gently. Keep me out of it. And he did. For the first time, my parents were dealing with their own mess without expecting me to mop it up. It wasn't punishment, it was reality. One they'd avoided for 20 years because I'd always cushioned the blow. Harold's 6th birthday. I didn't want anything extravagant, just something real. We invited a few of his classmates and set up games in the backyard. Daniel came over early to help me string colorful banners from the fence to the patio. Harold decorated the cupcakes himself, some with so many sprinkles you couldn't even see frosting. At one point, Harold tugged on my sleeve and held up a drawing he made. Me, him, Daniel, our cat, his 2 best friends, and a big, bright sun in the corner. No grandparents, no Pamela, no aunts or uncles. A simple drawing of the people who showed up. Do you like it? He asked. I hugged him and said, I love it. Later, while Harold ran around with the other kids, Daniel and I stood by the fence watching him. You're doing a good job, Daniel said softly. With what? Being his mom. Giving him a life that feels safe. He paused. Giving yourself a life that feels safe. I swallowed hard. I feel like I should be, I don't know, guilty? Daniel shook his head. Guilt is what they trained you to feel. Freedom is what you earned. He didn't pull me in to kiss me. He didn't push intimacy. He just stayed close, solid, grounding, there. And for the first time in a long time, I let myself lean slightly into someone without fear of falling. The letter. 6 weeks after everything fell apart, Pamela sent me a letter. A real, physical letter in childish, overly round handwriting I recognized from years of shopping lists and sticky notes. The envelope smelled like her perfume. Inside, the letter wasn't an apology. Of course it wasn't. It was a list of grievances. You ruined the family. You tore Mom and Dad apart. You embarrassed us. You left us to suffer. You abandoned your responsibilities. You're cruel. Mom says you'll regret this. You will always be the reason Dad lost the house. She signed it. Your sister. As if the title still meant something. I read it once, then tore it into pieces so small even a forensic expert wouldn't bother reassembling them. I dropped the shreds into the trash, washed my hands, and made myself tea. No anger, no pain, just release. The last drive. One afternoon, months later, Harold and I were driving to a dentist appointment when traffic forced us to take a detour. I didn't realize where we were headed until I recognized the turnoff toward my parents' old neighborhood. My hands tightened on the wheel. Harold, blissfully unaware, kicked his legs and hummed to himself in the back seat. For a moment, I wondered if I should drive by, see the house, see what became of it, of them. I slowed at the intersection. My blinker clicked. Left was the past. Straight was home. Harold looked up. Mom, why are we stopping? I took a breath, flicked off the blinker, and drove straight ahead. Just thinking, I said. He giggled. About cookies? I laughed. Maybe. The house, my childhood, my old life, all the weight I carried for too long, slipped quietly out of view behind us, becoming smaller and smaller until it wasn't there at all. Harold sang softly. The sun warmed my hands on the wheel. The road opened wide in front of us. For the first time in decades, I wasn't running from anything. I was simply moving forward. My name is Elena Marquez. I am 37 years old. And for the first time in my entire life, I am not invisible. I am not their backup plan. I am not their ATM. I am a mother, a woman who knows her worth, a person who finally chose herself, and that is more than enough.